morning, this is Natalie, and we are so glad that you could join us for our Friday focus from Greenville. You can see I got a great background here that is right outside at the Greenville Research and Education Center, and we are going to take you there before too long so that you can see some of the great things that are going on. As you know, our Friday focus series is all about highlighting Master Gardener service and outreach, even some research and connectivity with the community, as well as with other branches of UT and Extension. And so this is a cool example of kind of a rural Master Gardener program that's beginning some new research and education and outreach partnerships with the Research and Education Center that is in their county. So this is Greene County, the Big Springs Master Gardener Association. We're up in Northeast Tennessee. And this is going to be a cool way to kind of get a glimpse of some of these kinds of collaborations and partnerships. Of course, you probably know of some of our other great examples, which we will visit during the summer in Crossville at the Plateau Research and Education Center, Jackson at West T-Rec. And so we're excited to be here today to talk some about what's going on at the G-Rec, but you are also going to have the opportunity to hear from several of the service and outreach projects that are a part of Big Springs Master Gardener. The volunteers there, some fabulous Master Gardeners, are going to be sharing them themselves. So without further ado, let's go to the field and meet Melody Rose, who's the coordinator and horticulture extension agent here, and get going on some fun horticulture and Master Gardener topics for today.
All right, well, welcome, y'all. We are so delighted that you took some time out of your Friday morning to join us live from right here in Greenville, Tennessee. And as you can see, like Natalie said, we do have sunshine. So we're pretty excited about that because we've had 5 days of rain. And you can probably tell that looking behind me here. But I just wanted to open up with a brief description of the center here. We are the Research and Education Center in Greenville. We're situated on about 500 acres here. And historically, this center has been known for its burley tobacco breeding research through Dr. Bob Miller, who we also share with the University of Kentucky. So as many of you are aware, several changes have occurred since the tobacco buyout back in 2004. And so there's been some shift here in upper Northeast Tennessee in regard to research. So we're really thankful for Justin McKinney, the research director, research center director here, because he has provided us a great opportunity to come on the site here and get started with fruit production and vegetable production. And we're going to show you a little bit about some of that stuff going on today. So that just kind of gives you a background from that. I wish we had a picture of the mountains in the background too, because I would have to say this has got one of the best views across the entire state of Tennessee. But without further ado, you can see that I'm surrounded by blueberries and strawberries, and these are things that we have actually got planted here at the center. Now we're fairly young getting started with this project. It was something that just came to fruition last spring, as a matter of fact. So basically in the fall of 2018, but we just got our first planting in last spring, and we actually started there with blueberries because edibles are something that are a huge interest here in East Tennessee. So even before the pandemic, we had folks that were really wanting to get started with some of these backyard edibles. So that was kind of one of the pushes that got us moving in this direction, basically. And then along came the home garden variety trials that many of you are doing in your own backyard. So we thought, well, that would be a great way to kind of get us started here. And you can see this field behind me. That's actually what will be planted there. We've got some tomatoes and peppers that we're going to be evaluating this year, along with those veggie trials. And then the other big, I guess, the big idea, the big picture thing here that we like to do with this is focus on our Southern Appalachian heritage. So we partnered with Sustainable Mountain Ag in Berea, Kentucky, and we put out some heirloom bean seeds, and all those bean seeds actually tell a story. So it kind of makes it more relatable to our area and the clientele for which we serve. So that's what's going to be going in back here. But then when it comes to the fruit production, like I said, last April we planted blueberries. And often many people will hear me use this cliche, do as I say, not as I do. And that was one of these learning points. And not that we just had some learning experiences we wanted to share with you from that endeavor. So when we decided to plant the blueberries, of course, we needed to do a soil test. And as most of you know, blueberries like that pH to be super low. The unique thing about this area, if you can kind of see behind me here, this has historically been hay ground, which means that it gets that annual application of lime each year. And they actually have a hay sale every year, and the hay has always been very high quality. So that was one of the things we were dealing with. It's great hay ground, but not necessarily great for blueberries. So we knew that we were really going to have to amend the soil. So of course the soil test comes back, and yes, indeed, we were going to have to add quite a bit of sulfur. I'm going to show you some of that here in a few minutes. And organic matter. That was another thing that our soil test indicated, which was not quite as low as we were anticipating, but still not where it needed to be. So we knew we were going to have to spend a lot of time amending that soil as well, because I like to refer to it as fluff, because blueberry roots, don't have those root hairs, and they're very shallow rooted. So we need to add some of that material, which I've got a little bit of that here. You can see some of this composted pine bark mulch. It just helps provide for good drainage, helps build that soil. Yeah, this is an actual blueberry plant that we planted last year, and I wanted y'all to see this blocky, heavy clay that I was referring to. And you can see there just how heavy and thick it is. So you can imagine that blueberry roots would have a really tough time, as they did, penetrating through this. So we realized we were going to have to do some more work. And while you're here, Natalie, let me just go ahead and share with them, and I'll come back to the soil. But you can also see this nut sedge here. So the big spring master gardeners really tried hard to find an alternative use for this, because we thought we could be millionaires. Because as you can see, there's a lot of this in this field. So we knew we were going to be fighting that too, and you can actually see some of that here. But we've now decided we needed to include a herbicide application as well. But anyway, back to the soil. You can see how blocky that is. And so we have actually redone a soil test this spring, and you're not going to believe this, folks. The soil pH rose. So we're going to come back and make some sulfur applications here. You can see some of that here as well. We're going to have to put a lot of that on there to get the soil amended. And we're going to add this composted pine bark mulch to give that soil some more tilth as well. And just to wrap up a little bit here before Natalie speaks to you about some of the different cultivars, we have planted caneberries on site, and we have planted strawberries, and those are doing quite well in this heavy clay East Tennessee soil. So we're really excited.
You want to show them?
Berries planted. We've actually got some fruit hanging on some of these right here. And as you know, too, we always say in blueberries that we want to pick off the fruit, really focus all of that energy in that plant to below the soil line. So keep that in mind, because again, that soil pH needs to be super low. We need to have that soil amended before we get started planting. You hear us say that all the time, but it really does make a difference if you take a year to prepare that soil. You want to speak to some of the varieties?
Oh yeah, so for the blackberries that we have growing here, we really tried to choose a selection of some of the most common ones in the market, as well as some of the newer ones that are coming on. So one of maybe the most common blackberry right now that's being grown is a cultivar out of University of Arkansas called Ouachita. It's actually spelled with an O. That's how they can tell whether you really know what you're talking about. You're really Southern. Because if you say Ouachita, then turns out you're not Southern enough. So it's Ouachita, and that's one of our industry standards. So we have that here. It is it's a floor cane bearing type, and so you know, when you think about blackberries, you're going to think about the primocane being the first year growth, the floor cane being the second year growth, and that is when you're going to get the blooms and fruit. So that's the most typical type of production for blackberries. And we have several different floor cane fruiting cultivars here. We have Ouachita, which I just told you about. We have Bond, which is a new cultivar out of NC State. Melody, we had to, balance out a little bit of your various southern universities. So Arkansas has the biggest blackberry breeding program, but North Carolina State is also introducing some new ones. Bond has been one that some of the Western North Carolina growers have had success with, kind of a lower acid with a good sugar balance. And of course, I know Melody already gave you your geography layout, but we are just over the hill from quite a bit of fruit production in Western North Carolina. So we're very similar to that type of growing region.
where this cultivar has been tested. We have a cultivar called Kiowa, which is one, actually, I think it's the only thorned blackberry that we have here. It's a little bit of an older cultivar, but it has a good taste. It's one that for you kind of middle and western Tennessee folks would probably be a good one. It has a little bit lower chilling than some of these other cultivars here. So, you know, this will be a good site for us to be able to test some of those cultivars. And then the one that we're excited about is called Caddo, C-A-D-D-O. And we'll send you information about these cultivars, so don't feel like you have to write them down or remember everything. But it's one of the newest cultivars that's come out of the Arkansas breeding program. And you all, as eaters, will be glad to know that a lot of the breeding that's going on right now is very much focused on fruit quality and taste. And so Caddo has been tested and evaluated, has pretty good soluble solids, right? So that's an approximation of the sugar content. And so anytime we can get the sugar content up, that's a great sign. So all of those four, Vaughn, Caddo, Ouachita, Kiowa, are they're floricane fruiting types. And we also have a primocane fruiting type. And so if you've been growing berries for a while, you may have already had experience with some of the primocane fruiting raspberries. They actually came on the market a little bit earlier. So Caroline, Heritage, those are the raspberries. And then over the last few years, we've had more options as far as primocane fruiting blackberries. And so that means they grow, they flower, they set fruit on first year canes. Now, obviously, that'll be later in the season than what we would get out of our floricane fruiting. So you have the benefit of a shorter time frame. If you're, you know, a small scale grower or a homeowner that likes a wide harvest season, then that allows you to get some spring as well as some fall. And so we have Primark Freedom. It's kind of a soft berry that doesn't ship all that well, but we don't really mind if it doesn't ship well. It's actually a good cultivar as far as home garden type of production. So we have definitely kind of a demonstration here. We've got about 4 to 6 plants of each one of these cultivars. They were put in this spring. We have some good early growth. And if you're looking at this and you're thinking, you know what, that looks a little bit different than what I imagined blackberry production would look like. Don't you need some sort of trellis or something? And the answer is yes. It's on our list. So in the next few weeks, we'll be putting up a trellis, and who knows, maybe later in the season, we'll have an opportunity to bring you back here and show you a little bit of what this looks like at a more mature stage. One of the other fun things that we are going to get to do over the next few years in terms of blackberries is we actually expect that we're going to have more plants here on site over the next few years, because the horticulturists, myself, Dr. Lockwood, who you know is our fruit specialist, have teamed up with one of our food science faculty members. And we are actually going to be embarking this year and next year and the year after that on a sensory evaluation of blackberries, right? So that's all what we like the best. And the cultivars that perform the best in that taste trial are going to be put here in a production trial over the next couple of years. So we're pretty excited to work with the taste quality. So we kind of worked our way up this row. Those were the blackberries, and now we are here in our strawberry plot. And so we have about 6 or 8 different cultivars of strawberries here. Most of these are actually June-bearing types. Of course, in Tennessee, they may actually fruit in May. I think it was some northerner who made up that term. But botanically, these are short day types, right? So they set their buds last late summer, early part of the fall, overwintered those. Well, they didn't overwinter those here. These were put in the spring. And so that's the reason why I am removing these flowers. We want these young plants to spend their first growing season investing in roots and shoots and leaves. So what we have here are a range of short day cultivars, which are the traditional strawberries that we all kind of grew up with. And actually, we probably have some of the cultivars that you may have grown up with. We have Sparkle. Dr. Lockwood says that when he was a kid, Sparkle was what all the U-picks in New York grew. So truly a cultivar that has been grown in gardens and in small scale production for many years. We're showing some of your sedge here. And we have Early Glow, which a lot of you are probably growing as one of our earliest cultivars. Pretty good fruit size early in the season, can sometimes taper off. We have All-Star. So those are some really common homeowner varieties. We also have some newer cultivars. We have Rutgers Scarlet, which is actually what we're looking at right here. Obviously, a newer cultivar coming out of a New Jersey breeding program, and so it has a little bit more disease resistance. We have Flavorfest up there. It's actually a newer cultivar that comes out of the USDA Maryland research station. Flavorfest is one that a lot of the U-Picks are growing, and they've had good comments on the flavor. I actually ordered it while sitting in a strawberry cultivar session in Savannah in January, so it was a late edition. And we also have some of the common commercial cultivars. So what you see in front of us is what we would kind of call a matted row system. So we're going to let these plants runner. They will send out runners in the long days of the summer. We'll, let those runners go this year, and of course they'll produce daughter plants. And then, we'll let those daughter plants grow. And in a year or so, we'll renovate, remove the older ones, leave the younger ones. You notice kind of the self-regenerating strawberry system. Really common for home growers, not so much used by commercial growers anymore, especially in the South because of disease issues that tend to kind of reside in those plantings. And when you keep renovating, you just start to have a disease load that you can't handle. And so most of the time what they do is plant on raised beds, on plastic to control the sedge in the late summer or the fall, and then harvest those only once that next May or June. Take them out, right? It's an annual system. And so Chandler, Sweet Charlie, Camarosa, there are a few strawberries that are really used heavily in those systems. And we actually have Chandler and Sweet Charlie here, so we kind of have a commercial comparison. The other thing that we have up at the top of the row, and we don't have to go all the way up there, is that we actually have some everbearing types. And so everbearing are not short day. Some of them are day neutral, some of them are long day, but they essentially will set flowers, bear fruit 1 or 2 or 3 times throughout the course of the growing season. So they could be good for containers, they could be good for small spaces. The downside, of course, is that they're probably not going to produce the volume of fruit that you might get out of one of our traditional short day cultivars.
One of the new projects that's going in this fall here at the GREC actually incorporates tillage radishes into this blueberry cultivar trial to see their impact on pH management and nutrition management in the soil. Hey Melody, do you want to tell us just a little bit about the background and the plans for that project?
Tillage radishes, they have that really long root system, so they're going to be able to bust up a lot of this cloddy ground that I showed you a little bit earlier. Plus the potential there to help kind of maintain that pH level. There's not been a lot of research in this area, but we're starting to delve into that just a little bit more. So hopefully we're going to see some activity from that as well. And then just helping suppress some of our weed pressure, which we do hope to get a mulch cover on this a little bit later. But cover crops are going to be a great way to look at some of this, and going to lend some value to this project.
So that kind of gives you a glimpse of what we're planning for the future. Cover crops, not something that's heavily researched in fruit. And so our pathologist, Dr. Hansen, our variety trial specialist, Dr. Sykes, Dr. Lockwood, Melody, myself, are going to be teaming up on that cover crops project. And it's going to kind of overlay, could tillage radishes help us manage the pH lower in the profile? Those big radishes add organic matter, but also allowing some of the sulfur and amendments to get lower in the soil profile. So that's going to be the project that's going to be installed over the next few months. And that's why it's very important for us to get this site well prepared with a lot of the soil amendment techniques that Melody already talked to you about. So as the last thing, I just wanted to share a little bit about as we transition out of this section. I haven't talked about the blueberries. And so we are excited. We actually have a new blueberry publication that's coming out just in the next few weeks. Selecting blueberries for residential sites in Tennessee. So one of the cool things about blueberries, actually much like strawberries and blackberries that I talked a little bit about, is there's newer cultivars that are on the market that you may not have seen yet or had a chance to grow. And so we want to get some of those in the ground in different locations in Tennessee. So we have a planting in Spring Hill. We have one here. In addition, we have smaller demonstration planting. So Seth has some up in Scott County, and Rachel has some in Rutgers County. So we're putting those at some of our demonstration garden sites. We will put some in Knoxville. And you may or may not know there are actually 3 types of blueberries that you have the choice for. If you have a little bit of northern heritage, like I do, right? I grew up in West Virginia, and there was really only one type of blueberry. It was northern high bush, right? So if you've grown Jerseys or Elliots or Patriots or Dukes, those are northern high bush. They have the most cold tolerance. They can, when, well hardened, be 20 or 30 below. But they tend to be a little bit pickier about soil pH and water stress and those types of things. And so we can grow them in this northeastern part of Tennessee, but the further south and west you get, the more challenging sometimes they get to manage that site and the climate. So a lot of folks in Tennessee grow rabbit-eye blueberries, and that's kind of the traditional southern native type tip blue. If you have tip blue in your garden, then you know the virtues of rabbit-eye blueberries. Tip blue was introduced in 1955 and still growing strong. So it's a very vigorous, they're actually a little bit of a taller bush. They can be a little bit more forgiving as far as soil pH, not drainage, right? Drainage is pretty much essential. And then in between, there's actually been genetic crosses of some of those different types. We kind of have southern high bush, which bring a little bit of the southern heat tolerance, but more of the early bearing of northern high bush, right? So that's one of the best things about high bush is they tend to bloom later, but then bear earlier in the spring. Our rabbit eyes will bloom a little bit earlier in the spring, which sometimes can be a risk as far as frost damage, especially this spring, right? What a crazy frost and freeze spring, and they bear a little bit later in the season. So what are some of the new cultivars that might be an option? Some of what we have here for the northern high bush, we have Duke, we have Blue Ray. Both of those have been commonly grown a lot in commercial production. We also have, at this site right here behind us, we have Chandler, which is probably maybe a little bit of a, I mean, not real new, but it's probably one of the largest berries that you can find in a northern high bush, and who can argue with that? For some of the rabbit eyes, University of Georgia and a little bit North Carolina State has been coming out with newer cultivars over the last 10 to 20 years. And so we have some of those here. We have Ochlockley, which is a late season rabbit eye. And when I say late season, right, rabbit eyes bear later in the summer than high bush, and Ochlockley is on the later end of those rabbit eye bearers. We also have Titan, which is a large berry, probably one of the biggest that you will find in rabbit eyes. Sometimes people say that rabbit eyes tend to have a little bit of a smaller fruit than northern high bush. So Titan with a large fruit can be a big asset for rabbit eye growers. And we also have some of the old standards, right? So we have Premier, which is an older rabbit eye cultivar that's been grown for many years. We have Tiflu in our plantings. And then we also have here some southern high bush, which haven't been grown as much in Tennessee. A lot of the coastal North Carolina and coastal Georgia growers are growing southern high bush, but we haven't trialed them as much. One that we've grown quite a bit in Tennessee is a cultivar called Legacy. Some people call it a southern high bush, some people call it a northern high bush, but it's been successful at our Middle Tennessee Research and Education Center. But we have some new ones called Reveille and New Hanover. And it's our goal to kind of see how those perform in our climate, how they compare against northern high bush, and how they compare against southern high bush. So we're really looking forward to, over the next few years, being able to share this information with the growers of home growers of Tennessee, and being able to support you all as you grow absolutely the best small fruit possible. And sometimes we learn from experience. So we'll continue to relate to you our experiences. Melody, if you are in the office and ready, just let me know.
Yeah, we're ready. I'm
okay.
in the office.
We're gonna go back inside, and I'm gonna say, Melody, take it away. I'll see y'all again soon.
Okay, super. So we were just going to share with you a little bit from some of our projects that we have going on here in the county, and we were going to start out with our Tabernacle Mission Soup Kitchen garden, and hopefully we have Terry on here.
I'm Mary Goldman. I've been a master gardener since 2013, and this is we have a soup kitchen and a kind of a underserved area of Greenville. It's a Wesley Heights community. And I run the soup kitchen. I'm the chef there. What's unique about our soup kitchen is the garden. We, in 2012, one of our members saw the need of people to have fresh produce and realized that they could not grow it themselves because they live in apartments, small areas, no yards. So this whole project is really a labor of love. We want to give, as master gardeners, we want to give back to the community. And this garden is one way to do it, because even though people are poor and don't have a lot, they still want to have good, fresh food. And in this is a food desert. It's not close to a decent grocery store. And 20% of that community does not have any means of transportation. So what we do in the garden, Melody, are you going to push these forward or what? The slides. How are we doing this? Okay, thanks. You just push them forward and I'll keep talking until it's time for Terry. So what we did, what we do is everything in this garden either goes into the kitchen. We do a weekly Wednesday lunch where we serve about anywhere from 250 to 300 meals in a very small kitchen. And this particular slide was the beginning of it in 2012. And it's grown considerably. It was started as a demonstration garden. And it's grown because what has happened with the soup kitchen is the community has embraced it. The churches support us, not just the Presbyterian churches in Greenville, but the Presbyterian churches throughout the country. We get mission groups every summer that have come in and helped us build it. And you can see the various groups of people that are, various stages of the garden. And this is the expanse now. I think there's 16 raised beds. And so what we do is, like right now, Terry will talk about the different varieties, but mainly we put things that we can put in salad, grow things that we can put in salads or we can give away. And we had some Swiss chard that was ready. So I picked it and brought it to one of the neighbors, and she told me she was going to put it in a pot in 5 minutes. And what was really enlightening and endearing about that particular story was that she's had a really rough time. And so with her, some family issues, and it was great to see her happy. And this particular picture is Richard. He's our scarecrow. Now, this is another great story. Richard is this is an old African-American church. And Richard, it was built in 1950, early 50s, but it's been established since the mid 1800s. But as a little boy, he and other congregants brought up stones from the Nolichucky River, and every stone was put there by hand by Richard and some other young men of the time. And Richard he wouldn't join the service and traveled the world, got married, went to Atlanta. And at 77, he was fed up with his wife. He was fed up with Atlanta. And he came, you can see the stones in there. So he came back and was a volunteer. And then he hooked up with his junior high school sweetheart, which is so lovely. And then he moved to Kingsport, which is a little ways from here. So we don't see him anymore. But I said, so heartwarming it gives us hope for all, no matter how old you are, that you can find love. And that's what we try to provide in this garden, is a lot of love. And we also, we feed the cat, like we're a soup kitchen, we feed cats, we feed birds, we feed bees. We used to feed a lovely family of groundhogs called the Woodrows, but thanks to a new fence, I think they'll stay in the woods. Terry, you want to talk about I can go on and on. To me, it's a great project. I love it. Oh, I'll tell you about the shed. One of our former members built a shed, and a mission group came and painted it last summer. And I gave them some suggestions of what colors we wanted, and this is how it happened. And at first I thought, oh my God, how garish. And now it stands out. It's great. It just sparks up the community. Well, there's Terry, so she'll talk about the garden. And thanks everybody for listening.
Hello, I'm Terry Rhodes Taylor, intern class of 2019. The Tabernacle Mission Soup Kitchen Garden has 17 raised beds and 1 lasagna garden measuring 25 by 25. Okay, here's a picture of our winter garden. Fresh greens grown in our hoop house. Our inspiration came from a YouTube video by the Shelby County Master Gardeners that talked how to build an inexpensive hoop house with PVC pipe. And during the winter, Mary picked the greens and gave them to residents in the local community. The left side of the slide is our winter garden. The right side was our summer garden. Here's Lori prepping the beds last fall for our winter greens. More pictures of our garden, winter and summer garden. This is our newest project. It's our lasagna garden. We started it several months ago. We call that our squash bed. We're going to highlight the yellow squash and zucchini squash. And here's some more pictures of Mary and I working in the garden.
Have you been home since 10 o'clock?
No. It's about.
And here's last year, a picture of some of us. And here's our wren birdhouse. These are thornless blackberries. Mary uses these to make a fruit cobbler to serve in our soup kitchen meal. We also have blueberries growing in our garden. And there's a little bee house. We are also a monarch way station. We have several varieties of milkweed growing in our garden. This is from last year's garden. The sea trial, the high country red okra was grown in our garden. This is the highlight of our season. It's our Empty Bowl fundraiser. A large group of gardeners came together for a very special night. Some of us were the garden fairies. Our job was sprucing up the garden. Here is Chef Mary and Chef Tori. They prepared a special menu and meal. For the price of a ticket, you got a handmade piece of pottery, a wonderful meal, a glass of wine. You got to browse in the garden while listening to local musicians. Here's Betsy and Annie. They were in charge of the front of the house, providing food and taking care of our guests. They did a wonderful job. Here is Susan. She's the artist of the group. She made handmade pottery. Her next project is making a wife for our scarecrow, Richard. And in conclusion, the Tabernacle Mission Soup Kitchen Garden has quietly been serving our community. Our belief is that regardless of your social, economic status, you deserve fresh quality meals and organic produce. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry and Mary. And I think in essence of time, we are going to just go straight on to Darlene and Beth, who work at our local Boys and Girls Club. And let me see if I've got all of these on my computer, so bear with me.
Hey, Melody, before you go to the Boys and Girls Club, we've got a little surprise.
Oh.
So, as you all know, we're in slightly a non-traditional summer. And so what we're going to be doing is actually doing a little bit of our Search for Excellence Awards, kind of as we go along through this summer. And so since we are in Greenville today, I wanted to announce that one of our Search for Excellence youth program winners is going to be the Boys and Girls Club. So we have the proverbial shovel here. In fact, they're very appropriate. These are actually youth shovels. So for y'all who are collecting a whole bunch, they won't fill up your cabinet too quickly. So of course, when we are allowed to see people and work in person, we'll make sure that the volunteers get this. But for now, I wanted to say congratulations for one of our youth garden winners to the Boys and Girls Club and Big Springs Master Gardener Association. So here you go.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Natalie, and congratulations to the Boys and Girls Club, and I will accept that on their behalf. Thank you.
Yeah, so we had a question about, seeing pictures of active activities. Are we allowed to have activities right now? And right now, extension organized activities are, off until the end of July. So what you're seeing are pictures from previous years. So we're celebrating some of the past accomplishments.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Boys and Girls Club in Greenville, Tennessee. Our goal is to have a hands-on educational demonstrations in the gardens. And besides teaching the concept of gardening and environment, we also teach nutrition, grow your own perspectives. Here's some of the specs of our garden. It officially began in 2011 and was funded through a HEAL grant, that is Healthy Eating, Active Living Appalachia grant. Currently, our garden is 20 feet by 50 feet, and we have 20 raised beds. That is surrounded by a chain link fence that is 2 feet in the ground. This chain link fence was installed by the Boys and Girls Club because we were having groundhog issues in the garden. So that chain link fence is a great addition to our garden. And this is an excellent partnership for the Boys and Girls Club. This was one of our beginning members, Virginia Williams, who died in 2019. She was a great asset to the Boys and Girls Club project. Virginia was a retired school teacher, active hiker, bird watcher, garden club member, herb society member, led wildflower walks, and we really miss her at the Boys and Girls Club. She was also one of the first groundhog battlers at the Boys and Girls Club. And this is Sandy Grimes. She was one of the beginning master gardeners at the Boys and Girls Club also, and she died in 2014. She was very instrumental in the healthy snacks at the Boys and Girls Club, teaching on the nutrition side. Not only do we grow the vegetables and fruits, but the kids get to eat those and take them home. This slide is Beth Hembry on the left and myself, Darlene Moore, on the right. Beth was class of 2012. She's on the leadership team, a past president and a retired 5th grade school teacher. I've been a master gardener since 2007. I did not get to take my classes in Greene County. This was before Melody's time. I took my classes in Hamlin County and haven't been very active until I got to retire in 2018. This is the banner from the HEAL grant that we got, Healthy Eating, Active Living Appalachia. And one thing that the HEAL program stresses is fighting against childhood obesity. That's very important, not just in Southern Appalachia, but all across the United States. So we try to teach healthy eating and nutrition as part of our program. You can see this is the beginning back in 2011, 2010 when the garden was first started. This grant was originally written by Tusculum College Civic Studies Group, and the grant was good for 5 years. After it expired, the Boys and Girls Club and the Master Gardeners continued to financially support this program. The Tusculum College students designed the garden, and the Boys and Girls Club planted the first garden. And then when it came summer, the Tusculum College students all went home, so there was no one left to maintain the garden. So the Boys and Girls Club contacted the Master Gardeners and asked if we would be interested in continuing this educating program for the youth 1 hour a week in the garden. We have a lot of weather, severe weather in East Tennessee. So they initially decided to install the hoop house over the garden. And also, besides the outside gardening, we have inside rooms at the Boys and Girls Club. During the winter, we continue inside teaching, and the kids are taught about different plants, to look at the seed catalogs and decide what they want to plant. We have, in the summertime, we have a morning class, and when school's going on, we have a 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. class. We have the kids broken up into 3 different age groups because we can't have them all at once. They have a hands-on gardening. So we try to have about 12 at a time. We have ages 5 through 12, that's kindergarten through middle school. We have 3 different age groups. The 5, 6, and 7, we have 1 week. The next week, we have the 8 and 9-year-olds, and then we have the 10 and above. We alternate those weeks. You can see they work hard, and then they get to sit down and have their snack. They're taught to plant, and they get to harvest the things that they grow. Then we try to let them sample the food, and if we have plenty, they're each given a bag, and they get to take the food home with them. And as I said, we try to teach them indoors about nutrition. We have a lot of different snacks that we prepare. We do veggie snacks, veggie dip. We teach them about the different colors of peppers, red, green, yellow, orange. We have roasted veggies and herbs. We also grow herbs in the garden. And we have a pumpkin dip. And this past fall, we tried baked pears with honey, and they really liked that. Looks like Sandy's getting ready to plant potatoes. She's teaching the kids about the different eyes on the potatoes and how to plant those. And here we have a big crop that they are harvesting. It looks like sweet potatoes, and you can see the big chain link fence there that's protecting us from the groundhogs. This was a harvest that we got last year. Looks like we had plenty of tomatoes, green beans, and cucumbers, and you can see the little girl with the bag. They get to take those home with them and enjoy them at home. You'd be surprised at how many kids don't get fresh fruit and vegetables, and they really enjoy those. We have Project Share Day at the end of our Master Gardener classes, and each year take the interns out to the Boys and Girls Club. They get to see what we do. That's showing Beth explaining about the irrigation system. We have the irrigation barrels set up. We fill those with water, and then we have PVC pipe running into the raised beds. The blue barrels are water barrels. We fill those with water, and there's you'll see in another slide, there's white PVC pipes attached to the barrels running into those raised beds, and that's our irrigation. You can see it there in the bottom of that. And we have a strawberry bed that was in the last slide. We have the trellises built for our tomatoes, so we can tie those up. We also try to teach the kids about insects, the beneficial insects. This on the left is a picture of one of our master gardeners, Joe, on the left, who did our rain barrels and our irrigation system. He is a great asset in our Boys and Girls Club project. The little girl on her knees is holding the check. We entered some of our produce in the fair this past year, and I think we got some blue ribbons. We got several ribbons. You can see here for our corn, we got a blue ribbon. I think we ended up, a check was for $13, but that was good. We were really proud of that. And some horticulture that we entered. Potatoes, yeah. This is another one of our project share days, when all of our master gardeners come out and see what we've done and what we're doing. And we encourage all of our new interns to come and visit the garden. And if they want to join us, we encourage that. We need all the help that we can get, especially as rainy as it's been. We're going to have lots of weeding to do. This project has won several awards over the years. I think 5 Volunteer Spirit Awards in the last decade. And we have several active members right now, but our graduating class, we hope that everyone will come out and join us. This is a great group and a great project. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Darlene and Beth. I tell you what, Natalie, in essence of time, how about I just send you our New Hope Cemetery Restoration Project to send to everyone, and they can see some of those pictures, and there's some notes that are in the slides, and they'll be able to look at that project.
Yeah, I mean, you could give them a quick synopsis of kind of the history and horticulture connection. That way they know what they're going to be getting.
Okay. Yeah, the New Hope Cemetery Project was an abandoned African American cemetery in the Tusculum section of town, which is really close to Tusculum College, which is now Tusculum University. So I think there's about 54 graves in that cemetery, and it was all grown up, and you couldn't even identify it as a cemetery at that time, back in 2010, 2011, when we first started working on that project. But with the help of master gardeners and Tusculum College students, we were able to get in there and revamp the cemetery. There was a multitude of partners that helped us with this to get it going, probably about 20 to 30 different partners from even Northeast Tennessee. But just to highlight some of the things that are going on now, there are 2 veterans that are buried in that cemetery. One is a Civil War veteran, quite the story there. But when we decided to do the landscape, Patricia Hayes, who is a master gardener responsible for that design, named it after a traditional African-American garden. So when you see the cemetery on the roadside, and you'll see this from the pictures that we'll send you, it's very alive and vibrant with color, which was traditional for those African-American homes during that time, and what they called a sweeping garden. So you'll be able to see that. And then as you enter the main entrance, then you see more stable foundational plants as you move through the cemetery. But there's a couple of service projects in there from Eagle Scouts and from mission groups, just like the soup kitchen. We've worked in tandem together, bringing those groups for those projects to enable us to move forward with some of those. There's also been some art included in the New Hope, as well as some birdhouses and bird feeders that were made from master gardeners. So it's just a nice showing of partnership within the community coming together. And if you're ever in Greene County, Tennessee, I'd recommend stopping by to see it. It's very beautiful and peaceful, along with the soup kitchen and the Boys and Girls Club. We welcome visitors anytime.
Thanks so much for Greg for lending his fruit expertise. And most importantly, thank our volunteers and Melody, our host here in Greenville. You can tell that she and I are kind of running back and forth between the field and the office. Yeah. So we look forward to seeing you all on June 5th, which will be our next live session. We are going to be in Murfreesboro at the demo garden with Rachel. We might bring in Anna. So we're going to skip over to Middle Tennessee. We're excited to see you there. On the 29th, next Friday, is actually going to be an Eastern region planning meeting. So if y'all are from the Eastern region, it's going to be kind of a low-key visit. We're going to be talking about 2021 and dreaming for the future. So you'll get more information about that. But once again, thank y'all, and we will see you live in 2 weeks from Murfreesboro. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.